Hey friends, what's up? It's Krim, and in today's video I'll be talking to you a little bit about the state of the Outlaw Rogue in the current Shadowlands Beta. I'll try to leave out the bugs, not having legendaries, not having conduits, etc. and just focus on the changes that we've seen so far compared to live and how that affects gameplay in Shadowlands. At the end I'll give my thoughts on how the Outlaw Rogue will fit into the meta both in dungeons and in raids. So let's get straight to it with some of the less impactful ability changes. The first thing I'll talk about is the addition of Shift and by extension poisons. Yes, poisons are now back in the Shadowlands beta and you will forget to apply them a whole bunch of times until you get some sort of weak aura to remind you. It's still the same lethal and non-lethal poisons that you are used to in live, although they work to a lesser extent for Outlaw and Subtlety. Shiv is a reintroduced ability that you can use, does negligible damage and is mostly a utility spell and will have an effect depending on the current non-lethal poison that you have applied. If you're using crippling poison, Shiv will slow your target by about 70%, and if you're using mind-numbing poison, Shiv will dispel an enrage effect on your target. This won't see any use in the Outlaw rotation, but will still be very useful in niche situations where you have to dispel enrages. Next thing I want to touch on is the Acrobatic Strikes talent, the one that increases your melee range. This has always been an Outlaw favorite and was unfortunately removed in an early build of the alpha, but was soon after reintroduced and is still now on the beta. And speaking of talents, we are still currently missing a talent which will hopefully be added soon. Now Blizzard also said that we would have Riposte as a talent option because Riposte was removed from Outlaw Rogues and Evasion is now baseline for all specs. Now on live servers, the place of our missing talent is taken up by Slice and Dice, which has become baseline for all rogue specs in Shadowlands. Now on live servers, picking this talent would actually be a DPS loss over picking no talent at all in that row, so it's nice to see this removed and added as baseline. The next big change that we will see in Shadowlands is the removal of the stun effect on our Between the Eyes ability. However, in return, Between the Eyes will now put a debuff in the target which increases both our critical strike chance on the target and the critical strike damage that we do to the target. In return for losing the stun, however, we will get back Kidney Shot as baseline across all rogue specs. Now this change means that Between the Eyes will no longer apply the Prey on the Weak talent debuff, which at first sight may seem like a nerf. However, the effect that Between the Eyes now applies, the crit strike damage and the crit chance, is actually a substantial buff because it works on all of your abilities. The next change is another quite big one, and that's the one to Roll the Bones. Now on live, Roll the Bones is one of our main finishers, a maintenance buff that you want to keep up as much as possible and reroll until you get good buffs. In Shadowlands, however, Roll the Bones is now a finisher with a 45-second cooldown. It will give you 30 seconds worth of buffs that obviously you can't reroll. However, Roll the Bones is affected by Restless Blades, our passive that reduces cooldown of abilities whenever you spend combo points. Now what this means is that you'll often be able to re-roll the bones before your current buff expires, however nowhere near the extent that it is on live at the moment. Whether this will be worth it or not remains to be seen, and I'm going to leave that to people a lot smarter than me, like the theory crafters and simmers. Most of the buffs have remained unchanged with the exception of Grand Melee. Now in live, Grand Melee would give us attack speed and leech, but in Shadowlands will give us 2 seconds worth of Slice and Dice for every combo point you spend, while also still giving the leech. Now this can be super useful especially early on in the fight and a bit less useful as you get towards the end. Now last but by no means least is the Blade Flurry change. Now on live, Blade Flurry has got 2 charges. On Shadowlands it is just a cooldown style ability. However, it is affected by Restless Blades. From my experience, as long as you're pulling at a reasonable pace, you're able to have Blade Flurry up almost 100% of the time. The other change to Blade Flurry is that it now instantly deals damage the second you activate it and is actually equivalent to almost a 4 combo point dispatch except AoE. Blade Flurry is unfortunately target capped at 5 targets, but this is still super strong and may even see use on single target. I personally quite like this change, but it will be less forgiving if you use your Blade Flurry badly and you won't be able to get the Restless Blades cooldown reduction on it going. So how then does all of this add up into our gameplay experience? Overall, I feel like Outlaw is still in a fairly similar place as where it is now on live, and even the gameplay is still fairly similar. If anything, the changes to Between the Eyes have made us slightly better at single target than we were before. However, it does mean that we are sort of stuck to one target now in a similar way that Assassination on live is stuck to a target that has the Toxic Blade debuff on it. Another worry may be the 5 target cap on Blade Flurry compared to the other rogue specs like Subtlety, which has an 8 target cap, and Assassination, which currently has no target cap on Fan and Knives. Blade Flurry does still deal an enormous amount of damage, so for pools this size, Outlaw will probably still be by far the best. The change to Roll the Bones is something that a lot of people will be looking forward to, because one of the worst feelings on live currently is rolling the same terrible buff 5 times in a row, for example. And it feels much better in Shadowlands to just pressure roll the bones button and start dealing damage straight away. Unfortunately, with the removal of essences like Vision of Perfection, the likes of Adrenaline Rush are now on very long cooldowns again and won't be up for like every other pack as it might be on live now. All in all, I think Outlaw is in a pretty decent spot currently on the Shadowlands Beta. It is a bit more reliant on Restless Blades, but still has similar strengths and weaknesses to what it has currently on live. I've got high hopes for Outlaw Rogues in Shadowlands, and we'll have to see how the addition of legendaries, conduits and other number tuning will affect the end result. And with that, I think we've reached the end of the video. I'll be doing similar videos for both Subtlety and Assassination as well, and make sure to hit subscribe to be notified when those are live. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them down below. Leave a like and come find me on my stream twitch.tv/Crimbile, and I'll see you guys in the next video.